Hey y'all, welcome to Fitting and Homemaking. My name is Sarah, and today we are going to be making spinach lasagna, which is just amazing. Lasagna is one of my favorite foods to eat, and I just don't make it that often because I feel like the process is intimidating. It takes a while, there are multiple steps to it, but honestly, it is not difficult to do, it's just time intensive. But yesterday was about 75 degrees out, and today it's in the 40s. So we had this huge temperature drop overnight, and tomorrow's gonna be even colder. So that made me crave something warm and comforting and cozy, and of course lasagna came to mind. Since I'm working from home today, I will actually have time to put it together and let it bake, although I'm kind of working against the time clock here, so I'm actually prepping for supper, but I will probably have a piece beforehand because I was running errands on lunch, so I didn't really get much of a lunch. But let's go ahead and stop talking and get started since it is a bit of a process. Now, I am using a couple or two or three different recipes, I guess two today. Normally I make my own seasoning mix, but I am going to be using some store-bought Italian seasonings because we already had it. And I was out of marjoram, and normally I put that in our Italian seasoning mix. But we're gonna be using store-bought, but I can link the Italian seasoning mix recipe that I normally use below if you guys want that, if you wanna make your own spice mix. I'm using a spinach lasagna recipe that includes marinara sauce. You can use jarred marinara sauce, but I am going to make my own. There is a pizza sauce that's a marinara sauce that we used to have on Friday night pizza night all the time. And we just haven't been doing that. We've been using jarred sauce, and I've really been wanting to taste this sauce again. And it's really easy. You don't have to cook anything. You just mix it up in a bowl. So that's what this part is for, but you can absolutely use jarred marinara sauce. And since it is spinach lasagna, we need to go ahead and wilt the spinach and then get some of the moisture out of that and chop it up. So I think to do this the most efficient way, and honestly, this is why I like cooking 5 times less than baking. I like eating it, and I like the part of cooking where you can make things to your own taste, which is fantastic. And just thinking about this sauce already has my mouth watering, and also because I'm hungry. So maybe not the best timing for this, but we'll deal with it, or I will deal with it. But we're gonna be having to do multiple things at the same time, and I kind of suck at that. So when we get started, I will be taking you back here to my stove because we're going to need to be wilting the spinach. So we'll do that first. We'll get some water on to boil because we are using the noodles, the lasagna noodles that you have to boil. I don't like the no boil lasagna noodles, or the, what are they called? The oven ready noodles. Whenever I've used those, you're supposed to add like extra moisture to the sauce that you're using so that they absorb it and they bake in the oven, but they never bake evenly, and then the sauce like comes out watery. It's not like the lasagna noodle knows which part of the moisture to suck up, right? It just absorbs whatever it wants to. So sometimes your sauce gets really runny, and I don't like that. So we're going to be boiling the noodles as well. So we'll need to boil those and drain those, and while the noodles are boiling and the spinach is cooling enough so I can chop it up, we will be putting together the marinara sauce. And then we will put together the filling, which is where the spinach is involved. And then we will build our lasagna layers. So let's get started because I am running out of time. Join me at the stove. Okay, so hopefully this is an okay view where I'm not terribly in your way and you're not terribly in my way. So we are going to start by getting this going so that we can wilt some spinach. And we are just going to wilt that in about a tablespoon of butter. So, guessing that's a tablespoon. So while that is heating up, I'm going to put some water in here so we can get that on the boil. takes a really long time to fill up this pot. All right, that should be good enough. And I know this is a small burner, but my other big burner over here is the middle part of it's broken. We need to replace it. So this is what we have for now. We'll put that on high. Let's get our bags of spinach open. Now you're supposed to use 24 ounces of spinach. These 2 bags together are 20 ounces of spinach, and I think that's going to be plenty. But obviously that is a lot of spinach at one time. Get my tongs here. It's a lot of spinach to do at one time in one pan, so we are going to be adding it, and as the first spinach wilts down, we will be adding more. All right, and you may have noticed in the intro that I am not wearing, I'm just gonna pop this in because I'm in a hurry. I'm not wearing my apron like I normally do when I bake stuff, and that's because it's dirty, because I didn't plan on doing a baking video today, and while everyone else's laundry is done, my laundry is not, because I tend to prioritize getting my kids' laundry and other people's laundry done before my own. But there we are. So we'll start with that amount. I'm going to put this bowl over here so I can transfer spinach into there if this is just too small for stuff. Let's see. Trying to think of how many lasagna noodles I'm going to need, because I feel like I always do more lasagna noodles than what I need. Let me go get my other pan. I'll just stick it in there for now. Move the handle out of the way so I don't bust it up. Let's see. Guess I'll put them this way. 1, 2, 3 across. So we do sauce, noodles, cheese, sauce, noodles, cheese, sauce. So I only need 6 noodles. Is that right? Let me see if I am supposed to do an extra layer to that. I have been known before to write down the wrong thing from a recipe. So let's just double check. No, that should be it. So I only need 6 noodles. Okay. Bring my drink over here. And put the pan back. Hopefully there's not just a ton of steam that just ends up blocking your view doing this. Looks like I can already put some more in. Get my drink over here. Because I've just been kind of going nonstop today, so I'm a little bit thirsty. The spinach and the butter smells really good though. That 9 by 13 pan that I had over here, I had to wash it because it was housing some red Jell-O earlier today, so I had to transfer the Jell-O to something else. Because the only other 9 by 13, why do I want to say 19 so bad? I think it's because 1920 by 1080 is a 16:9 aspect ratio, and I have to deal with that all the time. Anyway, 9 by 13 pan, the only other one I have is cast iron, and since we are starting the recipe off by putting sauce in the bottom, one of the things you don't want to do with cast iron is to have something too acidic in it, such as tomato sauce, because it'll take some of the seasoning off, and it's possible that you might get like a slight metallic taste. to your food if that happens. So I had to wash that, but it had red Jell-O in there because the other day my daughter randomly requested red Jell-O. So over the weekend we went to the store and picked up a box of red Jell-O, and she really wanted a red Jell-O before bed on Saturday night. We were on our walk, and she's like, can we make the Jell-O when we get home, because I want some before bed. And I said, first of all, you can't have Jell-O before bed because it's got a lot of sugar in it, and I don't want it to keep you up. Second of all, that's not how Jell-O works. And I was trying to explain to her that it needs to set and it like become more solid. And she was, you know, so then it kind of turned into a physics lesson about liquids and solids and how you go between those two states to a certain extent, trying to explain how Jell-O works to my daughter. But we went through this whole thing of making the Jell-O after we got in our jammies. And sorry, I can't scoop and talk at the same time apparently. And we were making the Jell-O, and there were some big emotions that were happening about not getting the Jell-O that night, but she thought it was interesting, you know. And we were also having a little bit of trouble listening that late in the day. And, you know, my son comes in and he's wanting to help, but he's like putting his fingers in the hinge of the fridge that I had just opened up to transfer the very liquid Jell-O in this 9x13 shallow pan into the refrigerator. So then of course I like turned quickly because I didn't want him to get his hand smashed in the hinge of the fridge and get hurt. And then of course, like the lid I had on the pan is more of like a preserving lid and not an airtight lid. So I sloshed liquid Jell-O everywhere, all over the white countertops, all over the floor. Of course, there are some not PG words coming out of my mouth at that point because I was also pretty tired and done for the night. And yeah. So the next day, I ended up having to bleach all my countertops because Jell-O doesn't just come out of white countertop. Luckily, I don't have like quartz countertops or anything like that. I think I just would have been screwed then. But yeah, I had to bleach the white countertops and mop the floor. So my daughter learned about mopping the floor and like how bleach works and this sort of thing. And I didn't let her bleach, obviously, because she's 4. But I sprayed it on there and I showed her, look how it's disappearing, and we're gonna scrub this in here and let it sit, and then look how it's disappearing. And you know, trying to explain that sort of thing to her. And she wanted to help me mop. I was like, fantastic. Because the floor was sticky, because obviously I wiped it up, but I used a wet wipe. I wasn't gonna mop the floor in front of the fridge at whatever time it was when we were trying to get them through their bedtime routine. So yeah, all of that, and then we had some Jell-O with breakfast on Sunday morning because the kids wanted it, and she took a couple bites and she's like, I don't like this. Doesn't taste the same as at daycare. I'm like, fantastic. Now, my son also tried it and did not like it, and I'm like, maybe we should have gotten the strawberry instead of the cherry because she said it was too tart. And my husband's like, did you add more water after you spilled some? And I said, no. He's like, maybe it's just too concentrated. I said, no, I didn't think to do that. I said, but I tasted a little bit and it tasted like regular Jell-O to me, you know, the Jell-O of my childhood, because I don't really eat it that much. And so he tasted some. He's like, no, that's cherry Jell-O. It tastes fantastic to me. So now my husband has an entire family size thing of Jell-O to eat. And all of that effort and the bleaching of the countertops just for them to say, like, this is this thing I really want. And they're like, actually, no. And I feel like that is a universal, I'm going to put a little bit more butter in here because it's starting to stick. I feel like that is a universal experience of all parents who are trying to do something nice and please their children when they ask for something that, you know, is fairly reasonable to ask for. So yeah, that was Part of my weekend. But yeah, so I was cleaning Jell-O off that before starting here because I knew I needed to use that pan for the lasagna. Anywho, it's amazing how much lettuce wilts, not lettuce, this is not lettuce, Sarah, how much spinach wilts down. I had thought about maybe making some garlic bread. We have some thick cut bread, but I will need to cut up some salad because my husband always likes to eat salad for supper. Looks like the water is starting to get a little closer to boiling, which is good stuff. I want to make sure, I might have to set a timer for myself. I want to make sure not to overcook the noodles. See on the box there, it says cook for 12 to 14 minutes because they are gonna, bake a little bit in the oven. And luckily my kids do like spinach. However, we might have another supper tonight where my husband and I will make something that has all of the components of it are things that my kids like, right? Or things that our kids like. And then they'll taste it and be like, no. And it's like, what is there not to like about it? You like every single thing that's in there, but you just don't like it together. And sometimes I think it's a texture thing or whatnot, but my kids like every single thing that goes into this lasagna, except for maybe the ricotta cheese. I don't think they've had ricotta cheese before because they haven't had lasagna before. So it should be interesting tonight to see if my kids actually eat this because it's like cheese. Yeah, I mean, it's like pizza except for noodles instead of dough. And we cut up spinach and put spinach on our pizza when we have pizza night every Friday night. Normally I'd be doing this with my silicone ones, but I'm not. They're in a drawer and the tripod is blocking that drawer. So I used the ones that I had out on the countertop. That's the last batch of spinach that I'm going to do though. Now, normally I don't salt my pasta water because, I'm lazy and we don't cook with a lot of salt, but I am going to salt the pasta water here. So let me go, this is starting to spit. Let me go grab the salt from the table because that has gotten going now, and I'll salt that a little bit. Now I've seen some people say, I'm going to salt that a little bit, and then they pour a huge amount of salt in there, but I think that's fine. But that's part of the reason why I like making my own seasoning mixes for the most part and my own sauces, because I find a lot of things in America are over salted but under seasoned, and that's a very wide generalization, but there are various types of cuisine that are not over salted and under seasoned in America. However, I feel like most Americans who are making Western European style dishes over salt and under season. And I know salt really does bring out the flavor in some things. There are certain recipes that I definitely don't leave the salt out of. But I feel like people are just like, yeah, just salt and pepper it to taste, and then that's it. And there's so many other seasonings that should have a much higher priority than salt and pepper, I think, in dishes. Anyway, that's partially why we do it. Also, it's just, we're not used to using salt as much, so even some of the store-bought sauces, let's turn this off, try not to burn myself while doing that, have too much salt in them. All right, this is a ton of spinach. I might end up having to freeze some of this if I decide I don't want to put all of this in the recipe. I don't know how well you can see that on camera, but we are going to go put that on the table to go cool off a little bit. Let me see if I can get some of it up on the side so that it can cool off a little bit more. It almost looks like seaweed salad. All right, I'm gonna move this hot pan out of the way so I don't burn myself. All right, put these in here. And once the bottoms soften up a little bit there, we'll get the rest of the noodles in. All right. Who shuts a box that way? Oh my gosh. Hopefully that was off camera. I don't think it was though. Anyhow. All right, while these, there we go. Get on in there. Do I need some more water in there so that they can fully cook? Let me get the kettle on. I am an Italian's nightmare when cooking plastics. If it's just like spaghetti, I totally just break it so it fits in the pan. Or in the pot, I guess. It's not a pan, is it? I don't salt it, and just hopefully no Italians are watching this. Apologies. All right, I might add some more boiling water to that once the kettle boils, but let's set a timer. Because like I said, I am non bueno at doing multiple things at a time and remembering that I am in fact doing multiple things at a time. Let's set it for 10 minutes. Just in case it goes off and I can't stop in the middle of something. And then let's head back to the table so that we can make the marinara sauce. All right, hopefully that's an okay view. We are going to be using a red bowl so that stuff doesn't get stained. And I need to get my can opener and open those. All right, sorry if it might be a little bit loud with that kettle going in the background, but I want to make sure those noodles are cooked evenly. I didn't mean to fling that at you guys, sorry. Guess I need a tiny spoon too. I always forget about getting the tiny spoon for the tomato paste. And this is where we're kind of winging it without the apron. Luckily my clothes are dark if I do get tomato stains on it. Although I have found that while my stain remover that I use for the laundry is not terribly good at getting out tomato-based stains, if I wash it in that and then I sun bleach it, they come out pretty well. So it just needs to be an extra step. Let me get a small spoon. I know, Max. Does it smell good? All right. Get the tomato paste. And this is one of those recipes where it does use a full can of tomato paste, which is amazing. I feel like there are tons of recipes where you only need like 1 ounce or like a couple tablespoons of tomato paste, and then you have tomato paste sitting in your fridge that you're trying to figure out what else to do with it, but you've already had a tomato-based thing and you don't want to have another tomato-based thing that week. I don't know if that's an issue for anyone else. You checking everything out, Max? You let me know if you need to go out, okay? Max has a little bit of a sick tummy at the moment. But he's been a really good boy about letting us know when he needs to go out. Sorry, that's probably terribly loud. All right, tomato paste, tomato sauce. All right, good enough. Then we are going to do 2 tablespoons of dried oregano. I think I have all the proper things over here. And this recipe for this marinara sauce is just so easy because it's just dump and stir it all together. What did I say, 2 tablespoons? Yes. It's been a while since I made this, like I said before. And a little extra oregano is fine. Let me go add the kettle water to the noodles. All right, they're all under the water now. We need 2 tablespoons of Italian seasoning. One, 2. And part of the reason why I like this sauce is because it is so flavorful. Half teaspoon of garlic powder and a half teaspoon of onion powder. I guess I could make myself some tea too because I didn't use all the water. Does anyone else find that their onion powder always kind of hardens up? I swear it's impossible to keep enough moisture out of the onion powder for it not to at least get some chunks in it. At least where I live in the Southeast, where it tends to be fairly humid. I was trying to avoid saying the word moist. 1 teaspoon sugar. There we go. And then salt and pepper to taste. I always pour it in my hand first because I'm so afraid I'm going to like just absolutely pour too much. Like, that's all the salt I need. And put a little bit of pepper. My kids don't like things too spicy, so our pepper usage has gone down by quite a bit. And then we just stir. And it makes this really, really lovely, very seasoned pizza sauce. So it is more of a pizza sauce than a marinara sauce, but I think it's going to be really delicious, especially since there isn't going to be, it is a vegetarian, would you consider it vegetarian with eggs? When I was vegetarian for a while, but I was a lacto-ovo vegetarian, and I know some people didn't consider me a vegetarian because I ate eggs. I know some people don't consider you a vegetarian if you do dairy at all, but then I feel like that's vegan. But then some vegans eat honey, don't they? Anyway, not what we need to be talking about, but according to my standards, this is vegetarian because it doesn't have any meat. You don't need to, end an animal to get any of the ingredients. So normally you might have Italian sausage in a lasagna, and I feel like this kind of gives some of that flavor, not the sausage flavor, but the Italian flavorings. I'm sorry, I'm so hungry, I'm getting so smacky. Apologies. All right, we still have a couple minutes. I'm just gonna put this down here so I don't knock it off on that, but that was it. That was it for the marinara sauce, guys. And it's delicious. All right, let's see. Let me clear some of this. Yep, that went about as well as anticipated. That's what happens when you try to do too many things at a time. All right, we're going to set this stuff aside because if you've watched some of my other baking videos, you know that I have a penchant for knocking things over that are in my way. But let's see if we can chop up some of this spinach. If it's cooled down enough to do that, I feel like it has. And maybe actually let's put this through, I have the drainer over there for the noodles, but let me go ahead and put this through the drainer and like press down on it. I'm just gonna go over to the sink and do that. I'm not gonna take you guys with me because it's a little bit of a pita, so apologies, but I'm putting spinach in this thing and pressing the water out. There is quite a lot of moisture in here. And I don't know if I said it before, if I only thought about saying it before when I was doing something else or when I was thinking about doing a video while making this, but I have made vegetable lasagna before. And the first time I made it, I was using mushrooms instead of meat because, you know, it's vegetable lasagna. And I did not properly remove enough of the liquid from the mushrooms, and it ended up with soggy lasagna. And I think that's the only time I've ever had gross lasagna. There's time when I've had very salty lasagna and very like overly cheesy lasagna, which being from the Midwest, or at least growing up mostly in the Midwest, I didn't even know that that was a thing, that you could have too much cheese on something, but someone somehow managed to put too much cheese on a lasagna. All right, and my timer is going off. All right, let's pause that. All right, guys, I had to pause because my husband got home, so I wanted to say hi to him, and my timer was going off, saying it was time to check the noodles, but I'm in the middle of doing this, so I just turned off the heat on those noodles, and I will get to them in just a minute. But I think that's a decent amount of that out, and I might just, honestly, this is probably going to be easier just for me to squeeze it like this. Maybe in smaller chunks. I also do this when I'm making quiche, although usually it's just draining frozen spinach. Pressing it, I think the strainer is a little bit too flexible to really get a ton of it out. Hopefully those sounds are picking up. Even a little ASMR for you guys. Let's just do smaller batches. That's probably gonna be easier. It's like trying to wring out a very squishy, gross washcloth. Not a feeling for everyone. I didn't realize my husband was getting home so early today, but he is going to rest. He was up quite a bit with our kids last night because it was his night to get up with them if they needed something. I think he ended up just finishing out the night sleeping with my son in his bed. But like I said earlier, Max's tummy was a little bit, he's having some tummy troubles right now. So even though it was my night off where I was not getting up with the kids, I had to get up at 1:30 in the morning to let Max outside, which is very, very unusual. But he was a very good boy and let me know that he, in fact, really actually needed to go out at 1:30 in the morning. He seems to be Still having issues, but getting better. Sorry if that's gross to talk about while I'm doing this and making these noises. But that's what's going on in my life right now. And I don't want soggy spinach. I bet I probably could have saved the spinach butter water for something. Goodness. It's like never-ending amounts of fluid. Unfortunately, the bottom of the strainer is just slightly bigger than the drain hole in my sink, so a lot of times it tries to dip down in there. All right, let me go test the noodles real quick. Yep. They are good. I'm gonna drain them in here. Right. See if I can kind of get them to, well, I guess if they stick together a little bit, that's not a big deal, but we'll leave them in there. Let's go chop up this spinach. Okay. Could that be drier? Certainly could, but this is what we're gonna work with. It shouldn't be too bad. All the goodness. Okay. And I have zero knife skills, so, and this is also not the sharpest knife on earth, so apologies. Now to go the other way. And then hopefully this will be cut up small enough so that my kids will eat it. Because like I said, they do like spinach. They usually eat it in salads, though they don't usually eat it cooked. Or they'll eat it, that's not true, they eat it on pizza all the time, but it's, you know, in little pieces that have been baked. We really need to sharpen these knives, goodness. All right, hopefully that is chopped well enough. We are going to put in 15 ounces of ricotta cheese. Into this bowl, we're just gonna use the same bowl. If my slippery fingers can open it. Stand by. Now watch, I've gotten it too buttery to open anyway. Have a knife there, no reason I shouldn't use it. All right. Actually came out fairly well. I guess I'll put that over there. 2 eggs. And these are at room temperature. I mean, they were sitting out here when I started the video, and it's been a while now, huh? All right. And then I need to grate the cheese, so let me go ahead and get this put in here. So that I have somewhere to grate the cheese. All right, how much cheese do I need? A cup or 3/4 cups of grated Parmesan. I think we're just going to estimate this instead of actually measuring. Yeah, it looks like that's probably about right. All right, and then 1 cup of shredded mozzarella, which will be infinitely easier to shred than that Parmesan. Well, if I can get it out of the package, it'll be easier to shred. All right, we're gonna leave that out because I get nervous shredding down super low. I feel like we need just a little bit more. Let me open this other package. We'll need more for the top later, so I have to open it anyway. And I just realized that I'm doing this without the oven being preheated. So let me go preheat that to 375. with the pace I'm going, it will be preheated before I'm done with this part. We'll say that's about a cup of cheese. Yeah. Okay, and then we need a half teaspoon of Italian seasoning. Our old friend. All right, so let's get this mixed up. I have a whisk out here because of the eggs, but I don't think I'll need it. I think the spinach would just get stuck in there. And I want to make sure that the spinach is distributed fairly evenly throughout here. Ooh, look at it. It looks already looking good. All kinds of squishy noises in this one, huh, guys? All right. Does that look like it's fairly evenly distributed? No big chunks of anything. All right, I think that's good. So let's move this out of the way. Tidy that up a little bit so I don't get cheese on the bottom of the pan that's gonna go in the oven and then have it melt and have a bad day. Move this. That was the awkwardest way ever to pick up that pan. Get some spray oil. That does not work if you turn it upside down. All right, let me go get the noodles. Then what did I say? Sauce, noodle, cheese, I think is what I said. So I'm supposed to do about 1/3 of the sauce. So we're just guessing here. And cover the bottom of the pan. This is being a little hard to do with this spatula being the what is it? The handle being so long. There we go. There's the technique. Need to get it flat enough. All right, don't be too precious with it, Sarah. My goodness. Get a little bit better coverage there. All right, fantastic. I've said this like 500 times. Sauce, noodles, cheese. All right, come here, my precious noodles. And those are cooked well. 1, 2. Sure, I get them to the edges here. 3. I am going to be a little bit disappointed if my kids don't like lasagna because it is just so delicious. And except for the ricotta cheese, like I was saying before, I know they like the rest of the ingredients. All right, now we have this. Looks like I got some long stems in there. It's okay. So we need half of this because we only layer this twice. Does that look half? I guess maybe spreading it longitudinally is the best way to do this here. Let's get some of that over there. Oh, this has so much cheesy goodness in it. Try to make sure I get the ends of these noodles covered up. All right, then we have sauce. Don't know why I'm not pouring it out of the spout. All right. The top layer is just going to have to be really thin. But I think that's okay because it'll be covered with 2 cups of cheese later. All right, and noodles. Oops, come on. Oops. They're a little bit slippery. All right, let's move that to the side. Oops, I got messy. Trying to hold on the noodle while it slides all over the place. I want to make sure that noodle seam gets covered too. This actually reminds me of, oh, I just lost it. Spinach artichoke dip, or like any sort of spinach dip. I'm sure it's similar. I think it's cream cheese instead of ricotta cheese for most of those, though. All right, that seems like a little light on it right there. Gotta get that cheesy goodness everywhere. All right. There, perfect. Okay. Okay. Gotta take a drink, it's exhausting, but I know we're like that. Y'all, my posture is so bad. That is one of the things where when I'm editing my videos and stuff, I get so irritated with myself because you're just like looking at yourself constantly. It's maybe not the best thing for your self-esteem always, but I used to have amazing posture because I did dance all the time, or in college I did fencing. And then I had kids and I breastfed, and I've gotten so used to like curling down and huddling around them from breastfeeding. And I know they're like, sit up straight when you breastfeed, but there was not a breastfeeding pillow that would raise my child high enough up where I wasn't just like physically holding them up really far. And you know what? You get tired, especially when they're really young and they take forever to finish feeding. And I'm talking about like in the beginning, it takes like 30, sometimes 40 minutes for them to finish feeding. They get more, they get more experience with it and they get quicker. But as they get older, they're also drinking more. They do it more quickly, but like 10 minutes aside, that's still a long time to hold a child up without a ton of support. So I ended up going like this, and I see it in my videos all the time. So that is something I would really like to work on so I don't have a permanent hunchback. All right, good enough. Hopefully I didn't just get sauce everywhere. So that looks good. Let me take these things to the sink area. And the only other thing that we need to do is we need to cover it with tin foil and then stick it in the oven. It looks like the oven's almost preheated. And then we need to shred 2 more cups of mozzarella cheese. We are going to cover this with tin foil, put it in the oven for 45 minutes, and then after 45 minutes, we will remove the tin foil and put the 2 cups of cheese on the top to cover it, and then put it back in for 15 minutes so it gets nice and browned. But let me go get the tin foil. I forgot to bring that out. It's not a baking video if I forget to have something out, is it? I didn't check to see if the pizza steel was in the oven. Oh, of course it is. That's why it's taking so long to heat up. God. Really hate when I do that. All right. Need some hot mitts to put the pizza steel on because now it's a bajillion degrees. All right. The pizza steel is amazing for pizza, but it is a pedo when we leave it in there. Anyway, It's at 350, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this in there and then set my timer for 45 minutes. I will get this cleaned up and shred some more cheese, and I'll see you back here when it is time to sprinkle the rest of the cheese on top. All right, 45 minutes has started. I'm gonna shred the cheese and then get cleaned up, and I'll see you in a bit. All right, y'all, my timer is done. So it is time to take the lasagna out of the oven. And remove this tin foil. It smells so good. Let's see if I can do this without burning myself. Yum. And we are going to go ahead and sprinkle this cheese right here on top and then put it back in the oven for 15 more minutes. I'm gonna let that cheese brown. Now I did just shred the whole block of mozzarella cheese with the intention of spreading it on here, and if there's extra, I'll just, you know, set it aside for when we have our pizza night or whatever. But hopefully this will crust over nicely. Looks like I'm actually going to use all of it. If I stop flinging it everywhere, I might have enough. So obviously not the healthiest thing for you, but you know what? You gotta enjoy life. We don't have this very often at all. I imagine we won't be eating huge pieces at a time. So this is also nice because I'm sure I will end up cutting up some pieces and freezing them, and that will be nice on days that we just don't want to cook or have an easy meal. All of this, of course, assuming that my kids like this, but it can also be an easy meal for myself or my husband to take to work and then just reheat. All right, back in the oven she goes for 15 more minutes. Let's get the timer set for 15. Oops, way too far, Sarah. My mind was on something else. All right, sorry, I know that's upside down for you guys, but it is right side up for me. And start, and we will check back in. I will probably chop up a salad for my husband to kill off some time until then, since we're out of salad. And I will see you when it's done. All right, y'all, that is 15 minutes. Let me get my hot mitts. Oof, steamed up my glasses. Hold on, I can't see. Ooh, look at that. That looks so delicious. Now, could I let the cheese brown a little bit more? Probably, but I like the crust that is going on around the edge here. And I really want to just dig into this. I am so freaking hungry, guys. But it's 4:30. I'm gonna wait at least 10 minutes for it to cool down so when I slice into it, it's not, just soup. So I'm gonna set my timer again, wait for this to cool down, and then I will cut a piece, probably a small piece because I wanna wait for supper for my family because we are awfully close to supper time now. And I'll take you guys over to the table and give it a try and let you know how it turned out. All right, guys, I could only make it a few minutes. So let's cut into this bad boy. Now, normally I would make lasagna pieces much bigger than this, but my kids are fairly little, so we're gonna try small pieces first. And I just wanna try a taste. See if I can even get this out. Well, I may have made it too small. Maybe let's get a fork if I can reach it. Y'all are kind of in the way there, but oof, little chunk of cheese. Delicious. You can see all the goodness on the side there. My gosh. All right. Let me take you to the table and try it out. All right, the first piece kind of came out messy, but that is a-okay. Let's see if I can get a bite of everything here. It smells so good. It's very spinachy, but in a good way. It's like if cheese and spinach ravioli was way more delicious than it is, like, the store-bought brand. The ricotta cheese. The sauce has a little bit of sweetness to it. There's lots of spices. Oh, I'm so happy. Well, I really hope my family likes this. I like it, so I guess if they don't eat it, I will quickly have to figure out something else for them to eat tonight, but I will have loads of lasagna to be able to cut up and freeze and be able to eat up for lunches for work and all of that sort of thing. Oh, it's just so savory and cozy and just exactly what I've been looking forward to. The noodles are the right consistency, unlike the normal oven baked noodles. These are the regular noodles that we boiled ahead of time, and zero regrets there. That pizza style marinara sauce tastes wonderful with it. Nothing soggy, it's just the right consistency. So I am very pleased with this since it's been, sorry, I'm very saliva-y right now. I'm very happy with this since it's been so long since I have made lasagna. And I will link all of the different recipes down below that I kind of put together to make this. And if you want more baking videos, or I guess this was cooking and baking this time, let me know and I will keep adding more to my cozy fall recipe series. And I guess this is the first semi-cooked, semi-baked one in there. But comment down below, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you can be notified of upcoming videos if this is the sort of thing you like. I also do other general homemaking content. I do have some videos coming up where I'm looking at more ways to incorporate nature into my homemaking housekeeping. It's been a long day, y'all. Okay. And I would appreciate that subscribe. It's free. It doesn't cost you guys anything. And I would appreciate it very much. I will see you the next time. Bye. Oh my gosh, guys, the crusty bit. So good. Unless I wash this plate, which I'm not going to do, my family's going to know I started without them. Oh well. They'll never know. Bye, y'all.